Okay, can you hear me? Okay, well, welcome everyone to our meeting tonight, and thanks for being interested in our agenda and our community events. If I could ask you all to turn off your cell phones, but make it nicer so that you don't get embarrassed in the middle when they ring. I've had that happen. I know how that goes. We're going to start out by calling the meeting to order, and we're going to ask our City Clerk, Marcy Killian, to do a roll call.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation, and Pastor Gary Vanderford is here tonight with North Coast Church, and we want to thank him for coming, and he's going to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and please remain standing after the pledge for the invocation.
Thank you, Mayor Ritter and City Council. Please say the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, please hear our prayer for guidance and unity in all the decisions that are made tonight. Give our City Council wisdom in being attentive to the needs of our community. Let there be resolution and understanding that serves this community of businesses, family households, and visitors who come to our beautiful Vista city. We also ask for your protection and safe return of all of our armed service men and women serving overseas, for the freedom they uphold for us and all the nations worldwide. May God bless America. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. The next thing on our agenda would be the approval of the agenda by our city manager.
Mayor and Council, there are no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Okay, we didn't have a closed session tonight. Usually at a closed session we talk about matters that are of the governing bodies that are identified on a supplemental agenda, but we didn't have one tonight. So with that, we will move on, and we will be doing our presentations, and we have a proclamation declaring the week of September 11th through 18th, 2011 for Tri-City Medical Center Week in the city of Vista. And so I will come down and present that to Toby Ferguson, who is the president and CEO of Tri-City Hospital Foundation, right? I got that right? I'll go ahead and read this, and I'll present it to you. This is for you. And I'm going to read this because it's important. It says here, whereas Tri-City Medical Center opened in 1961 through the leadership and efforts of the Carlsbad, Oceanside, and Vista Chambers of Commerce, that's why Brett's here with our CEO of our Chamber of Commerce in Vista, to provide the growing region with vital health care services. And whereas Tri-City Medical Center has continued for 50 years to provide North San Diego County with advanced health care services, utilizing state-of-the-art technology delivered by caring, compassionate, and committed staff members. Tri-City Center garners national awards and recognition for providing quality care in stroke, cardiovascular, and pulmonary health, orthopedic, neurological, and spine health, oncology services, women's health, and emergency services, and deliver babies. They just delivered my daughter's baby there. So they did a great job at that. Whereas Tri-City Medical Center provides care for 90% of our community's medical needs, is one of the largest employers in the community, and channels more than $460 million a year into the local economy. Whereas Tri-City Medical Center has taken many important steps to achieve financial health and stability, which will ensure a thriving medical center for years to come. And whereas the entire community has come together philanthropically to raise more than $40 million through the years in support of Tri-City Medical Center. And whereas Tri-City Medical Center is looking to chart a new course in the community-based healthcare, utilizing innovative technologies and programs to continue to provide vital hospital services to our community. Whereas the Vista City Council recognizes and deeply appreciates Tri-City Medical Center for the lives saved, people comforted, and workers employed in the service of our community. So now, therefore, the mayor and members of our Vista City Council do hereby proclaim the week of September 11th through 18th, 2011 as Tri-City Medical Center Week in the city of Vista. So congratulations to you. Did you want want to say something?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mayor Ritter and council members. I do want to acknowledge that Brett Schanzenbach is actually here in support, not only in his position as CEO of the local Chamber of Commerce, but he is also on our newly revitalized board of directors, as well as our city manager, Rita Geldert, and Councilman Steve Gronke. So they are both working with me, so I feel a bit at home. But I did want to expand a little bit, because from the foundation side, our job is to advocate and fundraise for the hospital. So this is all part of our advocating for not only the 50 years that we've had, but we're also now focusing on the future of our healthcare community. Yesterday, or actually I'll go back further, our board of directors, being rather visionary, had agreed to fund a $1.5 million piece of equipment for the hospital, which is the Da Vinci robotic surgical systems. Yesterday, we performed our first robotic surgeries. We did more today. So we are leading the way with the most advanced technology in San Diego as far as our surgical systems go. So terrific successes. But it also, the week that we're highlighting for Tri-City Medical Center Week ends in a community event on September 19th. So I want to make sure that's on your calendars. It's going to be an event at no charge at the Moonlight Amphitheater here in Vista. We're inviting the entire community to come, so it should be a wonderful evening, and I hope you'll be able to join us. But we also have a word from Brett.
Just also wanted to invite you all to purchase a table at the Golden Anniversary Ball on November 5th, where we'll be continuing to raise funds for the Da Vinci and other projects, and hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're proud of our service, and we're very proud to be acknowledged. So thank you for your help.
We're proud of you also. Thank you. The next thing on our agenda will be our consent calendar, which these things are things taken all in one action. And I'll ask my council if there's anything they want to have pulled off of the consent calendar.
Yeah, I'd like to have C6 removed.
Okay. Councilmember Lopez?
Yes, I'd just like to vote no on 7.
Then you need to pull it then for discussion.
Okay.
Do you want to, they can simply record a no if they'd like, but he said, the attorney said, or you can have it pulled for discussion. What is your pleasure? Just record a no? You don't want to discuss it and give your reasons? Okay. Okay, so we're going to, do I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion for the remainder of the consent calendar.
And a second? Anyone? Okay, Councilmember Aguilera, second. Okay, please cast your votes. Motion passes, except for number C7, which Councilmember Lopez voted no on. And we pulled C6. Councilmember Gronke pulled it. Would you like a report?
No, thank you.
No report? Okay.
Just some clarification.
Okay. That's okay. Are you on?
Excuse me, on this item, you said it was, what was the number? 6?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can vote on this. Is that correct?
So you abstain? Wait. One moment. So you're okay? Okay. So we're okay? Okay. So then we're going to do C6, and we're going to have, you didn't want to report, we have questions.
Yes, I do.
Councilmember Gronke.
You know, C6, by the way, happens to deal with our movement in the redevelopment area for the establishment of 2 car dealerships down by North County Ford. And there's just been so much controversy and talk lately about redevelopment and its future, and that has put a hold, I believe, on Paseo Santa Fe. I just want to make sure I'm clear that through this decision we make today that we are continuing to pursue, that we will try to attempt to get 2 dealerships down at this location, and that this is part of our redevelopment strategy, trying to create jobs for our city and so forth. So the decisions by the state are not going to hinder our actions in that regard.
That is correct.
We can continue to move along those lines and continue to provide jobs and other business opportunities in Vista. Okay.
That is correct.
I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on that, and I will go ahead and make a recommendation for this proposal then.
Okay, I just have one question before you have a second. Did you say, is there a hold on Paseo Santa Fe? We're still going to do the detention basin, right? We're not going to, that's not on hold, is it? Or?
Yes, we're continuing to move forward with finish the construction drawings and move into construction on the detention basin.
Right, okay, so we're still going forward on that, on Paseo Santa Fe. Okay, yes. Councilmember Aguilera, Mayor Pro Tem
I guess
Aguilera.
since he asked the question, how is it that we're able to go ahead and continue with 242 when we can't do some of the other agreements?
This agreement is with the city, the lease agreement.
Okay, I got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I need a second then. I have a motion and a second by Councilmember Coles. Please vote. That passes unanimously. So moving on, we're going to move on to our discussion items. And our first discussion item is we're going to discuss naming of the Bengal Terrace Park interior roadway after Jim Porter, our retired Parks and Community Services Director. And I have several speakers. Do you want to hear the speakers first?
Well, actually, there are 2 options in the report, and so that was just stated. So we can have a very brief report, or you can listen to speakers, whatever your desire is. The report? Okay. Please proceed.
Report first and then speakers. Okay.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The item before you is a proposal to name Bengal Terrace Park's interior roadway for retired community or Parks and Community Services Director Jim Porter. Mr. Porter served as Vista's Parks and Community Services Director for 25 years. He retired in 2004 after giving 36 years to the profession. Jim dedicated his career to creating community through people, parks, and programs. During his tenure, Vista's parklands increased almost 400%. He shepherded the processes to attain many of the city's most treasured amenities, including the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe and the Wave Water Park. Mr. Porter was also an active community member, volunteering with youth sports, the local United Way, the Chamber of Commerce, and many other organizations. During Mr. Porter's career with the City of Vista, 8 parks and 9 community facilities were constructed. He brought the July 4th celebration to Bengal Terrace. He fostered the growth of the Moonlight Amphitheater and Moonlight stage productions and helped to provide additional opportunities for community participation through the creation of the Public Arts Commission and the Youth Commission. The Wave Water Park was also constructed under his direction, providing a great community attraction as well as a needed amenity for the school district's water sports programs. Those in the City of Vista are not the only ones who recognize the impact Mr. Porter made here in our city. He received numerous awards and recognitions at the county, state, and national level. Mr. Porter made significant contributions through his professional endeavors and personal efforts to foster park and recreational amenities throughout the city. Now, at the last City Council meeting, Council directed staff to bring back an item to consider naming the Bengal Terrace Rec Center for Mr. Porter. However, upon reviewing City Council Policy 401, which is the naming of city parks, the policy states that in order to name a park or facility for a person, the person must be a Vista resident. Mr. Porter has a Vista address, but he lives just adjacent to the city limits in the county and is not an official Vista resident, as the city limits are said. So we reviewed other options to pay tribute to Mr. Porter and are recommending naming the interior roadway that encircles Bengal Terrace Park for Mr. Porter and renaming it as Jim Porter Parkway. Street signs would be installed at 3 locations as identified on the map here. one at the entrance near the Gloria McClellan Senior Center. That's actually number 3. Number 2 is up near the bend, very close to where you pull in to park when you're visiting the Moonlight Amphitheater. And then the third one near the tennis courts at the other end of the roadway. We believe this would be a fitting tribute to Mr. Porter, as it will continually remind park patrons of his commitment to the city's parks and recreational amenities. Alternatively, if the City Council would prefer to name the Bengal Terrace Rec Center or any other facility for Mr. Porter, City Council Policy 400-1 would need to be amended, and that can be done at your direction. Staff can bring that back. The Parks and Recreation Commission met last night, and at their meeting, they voted to encourage the City Council to amend the City Council policy in order to name a facility for Mr. Porter. However, they support the naming of the roadway as Jim Porter Parkway if the Council chooses not to amend the policy. I also wanted to mention that the support for paying tribute to the contributions that Mr. Porter has made to this community is evident by those in attendance tonight. His daughters are here, as well as other family members. Kathy Brindell, who succeeded Mr. Porter as Department Director, is here, as well as Parks and Recreation Commissioners Garrett and Hallis, and numerous current and former city staff and community members. This concludes the staff presentation. Mr. Fortmuller and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions before we hear the speakers? Okay, our first speaker would be Richard Jimenez.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager. I'm Richard Jimenez, a long-time, since about 1974, resident of the Vista community. During these more than 30 years, Jim Porter's commitment to the city has been both subtle and spectacular. Your naming the interior street within Bengal Terrace is especially appropriate. Jim's special affection for the park is obvious in its popularity. Jim says that parks are to be used, and Bengal Terrace is one of the many that are used. Both the timing and the recognition are especially appropriate. Thank you very much from his friends, fans, and family.
Thank you. The next speaker would be Norm Hallis.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, city manager, folks. I think Jim Porter has done so much for this city and for all of us. He deserves more than just a little street through Bengal Terrace Park. I know you've got policies and decisions, but those things can be changed. And I would really urge the council to consider naming, building, or something more significant over Jim. For all the years I was on the commission and still am, Jim was a leading light for all of us, and not only in Vista, but in California. And we'd really like him to receive more recognition for all the good that he did for us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Hallis. The next speaker will be Gary Garrettson.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. My name is Gary Garrettson. I live on White Birch. I'm about an 18-year resident of Vista, and I'm also chairman of the Vista Parks and Rec Commission. As stated earlier, we unanimously support naming something after Jim, primarily the building. But if that's not possible, we would certainly support the naming of that roadway. I had the privilege of working with Jim for a number of years, and I found Jim to be a person of great vision. He was able to see what could happen. He was an action-oriented, outcome-focused individual when he was in the job. And I very much appreciate that coming from the business world, somebody who makes things happen. Jim is a doer, and he was a great citizen even though he may have lived just outside the city limits, and I would strongly recommend that we at least consider this roadway, if not the building after Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerritsen. The next speaker will be Jennifer Porter. Is it Poelic? Did I murder your name? This is Jim's daughter.
Thank you. Yes, it's Jennifer Porter Pavelic, and I'm here on behalf of my father. And on behalf of my family, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with the council and express our sincere thank you and appreciation for your consideration of naming a location in the city for my father. My father shared of himself and his talents with the city of Vista for 27 years. He was passionate about his career and enjoyed the creating of many parks, the Wave, and the Moonlight. And our entire family has shared in his pride of these accomplishments. My family is here tonight, my grandmother, my two aunts, the McGarvey family, my sister's family, Lisa, Miranda and her fiance, my nephews, Seamus and Finn, and many friends to support us. And I would like to say, real quickly, we are one house away from the city limit. My father's love of parks and recreation began with my father's love of basketball. We were raised with stories of my father spending hours in the gym playing basketball. We can envision him playing in his Converse sneakers because he liked to describe the black high-top sneakers to us. He shared these stories with us frequently. Excuse me. With 3 daughters playing sports and theater, my father took an active part on our teams as coach, assistant coach, and sometimes heckler. Some may have found it odd, but we never questioned my father's passion to teach and share basketball with the youth in the community. Many an evening we spent at the Bengal gym while he coached boys basketball. Simply put, we are asking that this leadership committee of the City of Vista consider naming the recreation center and gym at Bengal Terrace Park after my father, as gratitude and appreciation for his 27 years that he committed to the enrichment and development of community sports. Today was a challenging day for our family. After a long visit to the Tri-City Emergency Room last night, we have decided to engage hospice in the care of my father. So we are at the beginning of the end of his battle with melanoma cancer. Last night, I thought I was handling the events of the evening fairly well until I overheard the fireman, with tears in his eye, mention to another fireman that this was Jim Porter, previous director of parks for the city. And the fireman mentioned that as a kid, my father had been one of his coaches. It was yet another reminder of how many individuals in this community my father has touched, and it also reminded me of how fortunate I am to call him my dad. And it all did begin with his love of basketball. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor Ritter. Jim Porter. I met many, many, many years ago, being in business here in Vista since the early 70s when they first came to Vista. I would have conversations with him and his wife and his children, and it was always a family unity there. And that's what's important today, is that family unity, and your family has it. Jim would come at times to my place of business, and we'd discuss things about our parks, and since he came to Vista, the parks really moved forward. He had a lot of vision on the sports, and when you look at his achievements, there's a whole list of all the things that he did here. Not only was he a city employee, but he was a person who got involved in his community. And that is something that he could get involved with his community here in Vista. I remember that when we sat and talked, and we said we'd sit down and talk about the city, how things were run, and he was one of these persons that wanted to make things move fast and put them in right away. But there was always bureaucracy. And he says, that doggone bureaucracy, Frank, I can't get it in fast enough, you know. So, but he had to do what he had to do. And I didn't get to see him much here in the last few years because he was always too busy golfing. So I think that what we're doing, the city is going forward here. Whoever came up with that, you're on top of it. Tonight, I commend whoever brought that up because it will be a good thing. I don't know what the rest of the council will do here tonight because we have two options, but I'm here to work with our council and figure out what we're going to do tonight. But he's a great man, and you have a great father, great husband, and great grandfather. I know, I have grandkids, so you'll never forget. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. He was a great guy. He is a great guy, Jim is. He's done so much for the city, way above and beyond what a job would call for. But I would like to throw something out there, and then maybe you guys can think about it. We could do both things, actually. We could do the Jim Porter Parkway and then have the rec center, which will take a longer time to do. And we could do both of them and then have the Jim Porter Recreation Center. So I'll just throw that out there. And then I'll go to my other speakers, which are Councilmember Gronke, followed by Councilmember Coles.
Thank you. I first met Jim, I guess about 30 years ago, when my wife went to work for Park and Rec, and there was a kind of a hovel, if you will, behind the 7-Eleven. I think Miss Brendel was there, and Gene Cole and so forth, and Jim has done so much. He has done so much for the city on a nickel. You know, we don't have a lot of money in this city, and I've heard tales about Jim doing a lot of things and asking for forgiveness later, because that's just the way he got things done, because they need to get done. And I think we will have one of the finest park systems within North County, if not the entire county. And it's because of Jim Porter. So I would do anything to honor this man. And so if the suggestion is that there's a building that needs to have his name on it, and that he's one house outside the city, I think we can probably make an exception to that. And if you suggest that we also do the roadway too, that's fine. But I think honoring him with the building is appropriate. Is very appropriate for what Jim has done for the city. And I want to personally thank Jim for everything he's done. And I want to say to the family how sorry I am for what's going on in your life and how much you'll be missed.
Councilmember Coles.
Yeah, I too got to know Jim Porter when shortly after I arrived here in Vista as the superintendent of schools, because Jim had a history of really working and to coordinate facilities and activities between the city and the school district. And so he became somebody who I saw as a liaison, very important liaison between the children in the schools, the activities that took part in the city, and some of the very significant agreements that were forged between the city and the school district for the use of the facilities. And while Jim may live one house out of the city limits, he's certainly an honorary resident of the city, and I don't know if it'd be easier to annex his house or to amend the policy. I know that policies like this are put into place after significant thought and discussion, and there's no doubt that Jim Porter would have been understood and given status as a resident of Vista simply because of his long time here and his close association. But there still is the issue of how would this policy change impact, some future. Could we do an exception to the policy, or do we need to make this? Because I think it's good to have citizens of Vista be part of the historical future of the city, which is what this would become. And I certainly think Jim, by all measures, is an historical part of the future of our city. So how would we approach the
There are a number of
change?
ways, and I think that thank you for suggesting that. We think that it's not that difficult. At the next council meeting, we can have a policy before you with a couple of suggestions. The city attorney has already written up a couple of suggestions that can talk about contributions and/or a resident of Vista or employed by the city of Vista with significant contributions. So you can massage that and adopt that and then put it in place. You could put if you want to do both, if that's a suggestion, as the mayor stated, you could initiate the Parkway sign tonight and then bring back the policy, and the community center gymnasium would be on the next council meeting, and that would be initiated also. We could go ahead and start the processes tomorrow morning.
Well, I would certainly support that direction. I have no problem. I think we're all prepared, and to see the Parkway named would certainly draw attention to that by passersby who don't even get inside the Bengal Terrace to see the name on the facility. So I would support moving on with the proposal before us tonight with the Parkway, and then bringing back an opportunity for us to name the facility in his honor as well. And that being said, thank you for coming to talk to us, to share this time with your dad. And I'm so sorry to hear that his illness has advanced so rapidly, but our hearts are all with you, and his memory will be preserved in our city.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Aguilera.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll second that motion.
Okay.
I did want to say something about Jim. The first time I got to meet him was when I joined the board at the Alta Vista Gardens. He helped Alta Vista Gardens quite a bit in our beginning years, and I guess I didn't really appreciate how much he actually did until I got involved here at the city and realized some of the hoops that he actually went through for us. He was able to get a lot of things done, and I appreciate what he's done for the city, the park system, and of course what he did for the Alta Vista Gardens as well. And I can support the exception. I think it would only be appropriate because from Jim's experience and expertise, he was able to make those exceptions and make things happen. So I think we should be able to find a way to make this happen for him. And again, I'll second that. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. I don't know why this came up, maybe because a while back we have named some buildings here after certain people here in our community. We had Luz Durand Park done here a few years back, and just recently we had a building about 30, 40 feet from here named after Mr. Vance, our Mayor Vance. So I don't really see a problem here where we can, why we shouldn't. And your recommendation was to name the building, is that what you said?
It was both.
Pardon?
The motion was for both. It was for the Parkway.
The motion was for both.
Yes, the Parkway and the building.
I have no problem with that, so I will vote for that. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess, well, I just want to say one thing. When I first met Jim, I hate to even say this, it was probably about 1978 when I started teaching jazzercise at Bengal Terrace Park, and Kathy Brendel first came to work. I think she was like just out of college, maybe. We were all very young back then. So it was Ben. I've known him for many, many years, but he's just an outstanding person, and so I think we will vote.
Okay, can I mention?
Oh, yeah.
The question was, is how did this come before us? And this was a request submitted by Kathy Brendel, and this had been discussed before, and a number of years ago. It was never officially brought forward. So Ms. Brendel brought forward a request and submitted a number of items and wanted to have consideration of it, and that's how it came to being.
Thank you.
Okay, please cast your votes. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, the next order of business will be the management options for the Central Vista Business Improvement District. So, shall we have a report first and then go to speakers? Is that agreeable to everyone? And Councilmember Lopez is excusing himself because he has a conflict of interest. Is that correct? Okay. So we have a report first.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Kevin Ham, and I'm Economic Development Director for the city. And with me is Rachel Bell. She's an Economic Development Specialist for the department. Tonight, I'm presenting a report regarding the options for managing the Central Vista Business Improvement District, also known as the CVBID. The CVBID is a special assessment district located in the area commonly referred to as Downtown Vista. The CVBID is comprised of 260 businesses which generate between $55,000 and $60,000 a year in assessment revenue. The district is divided into 3 zones of varying fee and benefit levels. The CVBID is a city entity which uses the funds to provide services and activities which benefit the businesses within the district. The City Council appoints the advisory board, confirms the boundaries, confirms the activities, and authorizes the assessments each year. The advisory board meets at least once per year to prepare an annual report and give direction on CVBID activities. The city collects the funds from assessed businesses and distributes these funds to the managing organization on a reimbursable basis for actual costs incurred. Since the inception of the CVBID, the city has contracted with the Vista Village Business Association for the management of the CVBID, and they've appointed the Vista Village Business Association Board of Directors as the advisory board for the CVBID. The VVBA is a 501c3 nonprofit created in 1986 to administer improvements and programs within Vista's downtown under the Main Street program. As part of the management agreement, the city works closely with the VVBA. City staff reviews and processes monthly reimbursement requests, and city staff and a council representative attend monthly board and committee meetings as appropriate. The past annual CVBAD management agreements have allocated approximately $55,000 to $60,000 a year in CVBAD funds, in addition to an upfront grant from the city of $40,000 a year. The VVBA also earns income from events, sponsors, and grants which contribute to their annual budget of approximately $160,000. A list of VVBA accomplishments and a proposed CVBID work plan for this current fiscal year are attached as Exhibit 2 and 3. As of in March 2011, the Council confirmed the CVBID assessments for the current fiscal year we're in, but did not appoint an advisory board. Instead, the Council directed staff to evaluate options for future management of the CVBID. It should be noted that the VVBA has completed an agreed-upon procedures review with a local accounting firm, which found no irregularities. In addition, procedures and policies which needed improvement have been identified and addressed, as well as additional ones that will be addressed in the near future. Tonight, we bring 5 options for management of the CVBID for your consideration and direction. The first option for management of the CVBID maintains the VVBA as the administrator, but alters the makeup and increases the level of involvement of the advisory board. The advisory board would be comprised of 4 council-appointed members and 3 VVBA board-appointed members. All advisory board members must be owners of businesses within the district, and this option would neither increase nor decrease the level of city staff involvement. The second option, I'm seeing if the PowerPoint's working. Got it. The second option creates zone-specific grants. An RFP would be prepared under this scenario, and interested parties would apply for promotion and improvement-related grants within the CVBID. Under this option, the City Council would appoint a new advisory board, and this option would require additional city staff time. Option 3 is to contract with another nonprofit or a contractor. Under this option, interested parties would submit proposals for management of the CVBID, and the City Council would appoint a new CVBID advisory board. This option would require additional staff time in the beginning, but would decline over time. As a fourth option, the Council could opt to continue with the VVBA as the CVBID administrator with no changes. There would be no change to staff involvement with this option. Lastly, the CVBID could be put on hold indefinitely or eliminated. This would require additional council actions and should not be considered lightly. Staff involvement would reduce significantly after the current fiscal year, but there could be additional staff time invested in the short term depending on how we implement this option. Options 1 through 3 may require an amendment to the Vista Municipal Code relating to the makeup of the advisory board. Pending City Council direction on this item, staff will draft an administrative agreement, grant applications, and/or other related documents for approval by the Council at a future date. It should be noted that the State Supreme Court has stated that no new redevelopment-funded contracts can be executed until a decision has been made regarding the legality of the state budget plan and its impact on redevelopment agencies. Given this, if the Council desires to provide matching funds, as they have in the past, for the CVBID agreement, We must evaluate options for funding this grant from other sources such as the general fund. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Would you like to, do you have questions, or would you like to hear the speakers? We have quite a few speakers here.
I'd like to hear speakers.
Okay, speakers? Okay, we're going to go with the speakers here. Gamaro is first, followed by Mario.
Good evening. I'd like to request additional time to conclude my report to you guys. I'm currently a contractor for and acting as a director of operations for the Vista Village Business Association. I have been involved with the organization since 2006. I took a year off because I was managing another organization. From my perspective, the new active VBA board of directors has been and continue to function with positive momentum to resolve difficult issues inherited early this year. The board of directors has implemented policies and procedures holding individuals accountable for their own actions and protect the organization. The financial and operational plan has allowed the board of directors to take preventive measures to avoid future financial issues and our discrepancies in our bookkeeping. In July of 2011, the VBA board of directors hired Terry Arrington, certified public accountant, to do VBA bank reconciliations and will review staff entries into QuickBooks Pro to ensure proper allocations to the CVID funds. In addition, the plan includes a financial advisory committee consisting of 4 board of directors, which will meet on a quarterly basis. The financial advisory committee will oversee quarterly fiscal year budget, event profits and losses, and VBA monthly cash flow. This committee will make recommendations if needed to improve the organization's overall financial outlook and the VBA board of directors. The VBA board of directors will review and approve monthly financial statements and check register. In addition to the policies, our Smoking Q Classic and Vista Broadband event increased in attendance from last year by 10% based on vendor and attendee feedback. The vendor participation increased by 20% from the previous years, and we added a children's area this year. The Vista Broadband had a 12% increase in card participation from the previous year. Figures have not yet been finalized in the P&L, but we are estimating net of $10,000, which 10% will go to the North County Solutions for Change as a benefactor of the event. In addition to bringing people to downtown Vista, we brought overnight guests to the new Townside Place Suite by Marriott here in Vista. So we are generating the local economy as well. Upcoming projects for the VUBA. The committees are taking initiative to improve the overall relationship with our bid members and find ways to create more value. The organization committee goal is to have monthly newsletters to open lines of communication about bid members. The design committee is working on downtown tree lighting on Main Street. The promotions committee is in the process of bringing a farmers market back into downtown Vista. The economic restructuring committee is working on a downtown survey regarding the feasibility of a skate park within the bid area. Moreover, the board of directors realize that bid members' participation is a key to improve overall organization, and they are taking the steps such as those just mentioned to reach that goal.
Can you wrap up? You have your red light on there.
Yeah.
Oh, you did ask for
I'd asked for additional time.
Okay.
Furthermore, the VUBA is initiating new policy to publicize open board and committee seats to our bid members before making an appointment. On behalf of the VUBA, we are recommending to council support option 4. And I would like to thank you, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, and Economic Development Director for your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. And you didn't go for very much. Okay, your next speaker, Mario Carrillo, President of the VBA this year. Oh, Councilman Kroenke would like to make a couple comments.
I just want to comment on some of the items brought up by the past speaker. If all these controls had come into place earlier, I don't think we'd be in the position that we are tonight. And also, too, my decision is going to be very strongly based on the value you give to the bid members. I think it's been underrated for too long.
Well, I am my name is Mario Carrillo. I'm the newly elected president of the Vista Village Business Association. which I'm very proud to be a part of. I want to thank council for letting us get a chance to come up here and speak to you about this situation. I don't have to tell you about all the events that have transpired in the last year, but what we have with the CVBID is an agreement between the city and us, and they're different entities, but they work for the same goal. And that goal is to provide a beautiful downtown, to provide more value to its membership. And by that, this is how we do it. We put on a facade improvement program. And what that does is every business member in the bid gets a chance to update their business, improve it. We also have a mural account that beautifies the downtown. And we just did one just about a couple months ago over on Urban Pizza. If you look at their building, we worked with the Arts Foundation. And this is what the VVBA is about. It's working with other organizations, such as the Arts Foundation, the Historical Society, and also the Chamber. We all work together to bring a great downtown. We have a vision for downtown. Our membership, as you mentioned, this is my goal as president, is to reach out to every member in our bid to make sure that they have value, just not benefiting some, but benefiting all. And I am proud to be on a great board. We have worked, since I've been on the board for only 5 years, we have worked hard to get a positive board, and I don't have to tell you, you guys belong to boards. You understand about having strong leadership, strong board. For the first time in this organization, we have a strong, united front. And everybody, not just our bid members, but the community of Vista at large, all of our partnerships that we work with are going to benefit. You're going to see the events that we have grow. I'll tell you what, I've been on the Rod Run Committee for 5 years. I've been on the barbecue for 3. What happened this last weekend was just exceptional. We had 100 participation from our board members. We had people coming from Seattle, coming from Los Angeles, coming from the outside area. They wanted to come to Vista. And we can all agree that what we want is for Vista to be a destination. That's the goal for our organization. It's not about me. It's not about one person. It's about a cohesive effort from the whole organization to work for the membership, to work for the community of Vista. That's why we have sky sculptures around downtown. That's why we have a Taste of Vista. But anyway, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I would recommend option 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The reason I'm asking people to wrap up is because we have 15 speakers, so we want to get through them all. So if you could just kind of do your 3 minutes. And when you see the yellow light, that means you have 30 seconds left. So if you could just kind of keep it within the 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. Our next speaker is Tanya Worrell.
Test. Greetings. I am Tanya Worrell. I am in the bid as the owner of Tanya's Dance of Vista. And I am grateful to the Vista City Council and especially to the Old Vista Downtown Association for having saved my business 22 years ago from the rezoning changes. Vista Downtown Association is now the Vista Village Business Association. And in 1989, a fantastic woman named Vicki made the Vista Street Fair a huge success and fun to be part of. For 22 years, I have been introducing young families to the downtown area of Vista because my students perform their dances at every festivity and street fair that the VVBA and the Vista Downtown Association put together. Over the years, I have felt the difference of who is in charge of organizing each venue. And this last 2011 Rod Run and Barbecue felt just like old times of 1989. I witnessed that ambitious grassroots connection to this year's event. They, VVBA, are operating at a minimal cost the way a nonprofit should be. They are producing a community friendliness that I felt at the information booth when two different people, strangers, asked if they could be volunteers for any of the future events. Thank you, and I support the VVBA to continue on this fresh path of success.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Karen Clay, followed by John Lisi.
Good evening. My name is Karen Clay. I know some of you are new faces to me. I was the executive director of the VVBA from December 2005 to April of 2007, and I was also a public arts commissioner for a year or so. I wanted to speak tonight to let you know, just give you my opinion from being a past executive director of the organization and seeing what, looking at the progress that's been made over the last couple years. I'm very excited about what the organization is doing now. Things may not appear as they, are not necessarily as they appear. I believe that you're seriously at a great crossroads of being able to add energy to your downtown. The board of directors is energized. Gumaro, who I am going to take credit for hiring, is an asset to the organization. He's got great energy. He brings people together. He's a caring person, and that's a great thing for the people of Vista to see in that kind of role. My opinion is that you should continue with the VVBA, that their numbers are looking better. The events numbers are looking much better than they were before. You're gaining momentum, and I just think from looking at the whole big picture that you're really at a great place with the VVBA, and I think you should continue with it with option 4. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Nice to see you again. John Alisi, followed by Tom Fleming.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilmen and everyone else. Let's see if this works. I'm a past president of the VVBA. I was a member of the Public Arts Commission. But one thing I want to concentrate on is the VVBA's mission, and one of the missions of the VVBA is to visualize and improve the businesses in the downtown. Last year, around May, April, the design committee, which is a committee of the VVBA, had an idea of making businesses in the area look better by painting them and fixing up the area. By doing this, we made the other businesses more valuable. They were able to rent their offices or what have you. It just made the whole area better. As you can see in this picture here, that this is the before and this is the after. This here is Tom Fleming's shoe store, and this is the building that we decided to improve. We as a design committee of the VVBA, put together volunteers. We spent a weekend fixing the area. We took out plants or stumps, both sides. You can see they're gone here. We scraped, we power washed. It was a lot of work. But this is one of the things that we did. The people involved were Ames Construction, Vista Rotary, or Rancho Buena Vista High School. Here's a picture. Rancho Buena High School. There's my son right there. Okay, he's a good guy. Alta Paint, Guy Lumber, Lowe's Home Improvement, Cold Fire Pizza was involved. Of course, the design committee, the Historical Society, and the Wellness Center. These are all the. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to continue to do. There are allegations in the paper from last Sunday, and let me read you from the paper. It says, "City to revisit downtown fees." Tom Fleming, who owns One Day Shoe Repair, said he resigned from the nonprofit because he didn't like the direction it was heading in, and he no longer believes in business owners, that business owners are getting their money's worth. Ken Reese, owner of Reese Printing, said he has never supported the business association and wants the fees eliminated. It's a losing proposition, I think, for all of downtown. He said Friday he thinks the business district fee is a waste of money.
Are you almost done? Because your red light is on there,
Okay,
John.
his place is right here.
Yeah. They're actually speaking, so they'll be able to answer your...
Approximately 260 businesses are in the VVBA bid district. That turns, that's basically 13%. 87% is otherwise, whether it's they support the bid fees, they're undecided, they don't know, or didn't respond. 35 people in the bid members circulated or signed the petition that was circulated. So you have to decide as a council which group do you want to support. Thank you, and of course I would want number 4 to continue the VVBA. Thanks again for your attention.
Thanks, John. We have Tom Fleming, followed by Ken Reese.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. The decision you have before you tonight is a very critical decision. As you mentioned earlier, Councilman Gronke, the important thing is what benefit the people are getting from this. I think that's what it boils down to. This is a tax that's paid by the businesses, and there's a lot of the businesses that sit on the outskirts that are not getting a lot of benefit. But the biggest thing is, and I think all of you know that I have a love for the downtown. I have a love for the VVBA. I've been active in it for a lot of years. But I have concerns now about the makeup of the board and the direction of the board. One of my concerns is there's 2 sets of husbands and wives on the board. There's 1 set of mother and son-in-law, and then there's 1 landlord and renter. So that seems to be a little bit of a one-sided, if you would. You know, it doesn't lend itself to a more open discussion. I think the fact that we have a part-time executive director now is very important because that is critical. The executive director is somebody that actually does the contacting with the people. They carry out the functions that the board, the VVBA Board of Directors directs them to do. And so I think it's very important that you have an executive director that is more concerned or more dedicated to the actual, with the time to do it, not the fact, I'm not questioning Gamaro's intentions because he has got great intentions, but he doesn't have the hours to do this. So that's one of my concerns. Also, the Facade program was mentioned. If I'm not mistaken, and I might be, you'd have to check the numbers on this, but I think the last couple of years the numbers are down and more money of that $10,000 that you're giving is used for administration in that area. The events were talked about. The last year, has been unbelievably great events. The downtown events were dynamite. I mean, they were up in all respects. Dollars, participation vendors, people coming to them. But if you look back at it, the Strawberry Festival was a primary chamber event that the VVBA helped with. The Taste of Vista was a primary put on by the Economic Development Directing Department that put on that. Rachel did most of that, obviously with the support of the board. The Smoking Q and the Rod Run were both put on with the support of the board, but they were contracted out. They were contracted events. And so that in itself, I think, lends itself to possibly another option. I don't think it's necessary that we pay two taxes in a way. We pay a tax to the bid as a business owner, but we pay another tax, not a tax, but a voluntary membership to the Chamber of Commerce. So you've got a mixed bag there. Because of the things I've said, my option would be to eliminate the bid, take the $40,000 grant fees that the city puts out, save that for your budget, have the Chamber of Commerce look at this similar as you did with Vita, where you broke it up and part was taken by the city, part was done that way. The other option that I have, the second option, is basically your first option. I think that would be short of shutting it down, and I really don't think that shutting it down is what's going to happen. So anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Next speaker is Ken Reese, followed by Frank Lopez. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Gronke. Do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess it's a question of our legal counsel. We're not here to talk about the makeup of the VBA board tonight. We have no control over that. You know, there may be some concerns about that, but that's not something that we're discussing tonight.
Yes, that is correct. We're dealing with the Business Improvement District and,
okay.
its future.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, Ken.
First of all, thank you for all that you put up with. I opened my print shop in Vista probably 17 years ago, and I was really elated when I applied for my business license, and it was, I think, don't hold me to it, about $35. But then I was told to get it, it would cost me, and again, don't hold me to this, about $120 because of the bid fee. And I thought, whoa, this was a big shock, and I didn't like it, but I caught on board thinking, okay, this is a good thing, they're promoting Vista. And I was told by some people, hey, just, you know, the same thing happens over and over again, turmoil and tearing apart. And I've seen that for 17 years now. I was also told by some reliable people that originally when either the bid or the VVBA was formed, after 4 or 5 years, it was supposed to be self-sufficient. And that never happened. Not only that, but probably 4 or 5 years ago during the recession, I stood here as the VVBA board wanted to expand the territory and up the fees. And I remember hearing a lot of the council people saying, it's a bad time, we shouldn't raise the rates, we shouldn't do this, it's an economic turmoil for businesses, and it was passed and the fees went up. I still can't find it hard to believe that in the city of Vista, where we are the climatic wonderland of the world, the VVBA puts on 3 or 4 or 5 things a year. I think this should be a monthly big event. I know that's hard work, but ask any business owner, it's hard work to keep your business going. I haven't talked to anybody on the board now for a while, but I've asked different people on the board before that the whole idea of the VVBA was to promote downtown Vista so people would look around and go, oh, look what Vista has to offer, let's go shop Vista. And the people I've asked, when's the last time you or your husband or wife took a Saturday or Sunday and just cruised downtown Vista? No one ever did that. I think that the chamber should be, we have redundancy with the chamber and the city of Vista, or the VVBA. I think that the chamber should be given all of Vista to take care of, with the idea that contract out one event, one big event every month, and they can just make the profit off that. So right now we're in another tough economic time, and I beg you, please, do option, I think it was 5 or 6, the last one, of just get rid of the VVBA completely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Frank Lopez, followed by Monica Shellhoop. Where did he go? Is Frank here? Okay, well, we'll do Monica Shellhoop, and then we'll...
He's coming.
Oh, he's coming? Okay. Never mind, Monica, he's coming, so we'll just... Yeah, okay. You're on, Frank.
Good evening. My name is Frank Lopez, address 727 South Santa Fe here in Vista. Over the weekend, I read an article about one of your quotes, Ms. Ritter, and it said more community involvement. And the VBA is community involvement. I also read the part where Tom Fleming says no value. His building was painted through VBA. And this is not just not criticizing, but when you say no value, there is value there.
I didn't say no value.
No, I didn't say that you. I said Tom Fleming.
Oh. Thank you. I what?
Okay, no. I didn't say, I said involvement. You said community involvement in the paper. They asked the mayors, did you read the paper? It's, I'm sorry, but
Frank.
But that's what I said. I'm complimenting you. Is what I'm trying to do. Okay.
Okay.
Now, but on the other hand, I read no value. John Shakarian was involved with the facade. There was value. Not making fun of, or what I'm saying is the value is there. Over the weekend, I was down at the Rancho Minerva, and the Vista Press gave a bunch of old books of the newspaper, and Paul says, look through them, Paul Eckert. So I pulled the first one out of there. I opened it up, and you're not going to believe this. I see a picture of Judy Ritter there. Judy Ritter, they had an article there and said she was the first president, correct?
Not the first, but I was
one of the
somewhere
presidents,
third or fourth, something like
of the VBA, and explained what you thought about the VBA at that time. And it was to bring the community and businesses together so that the businesses could improve, so that if the businesses improve, that means more dollar to the community, to the city, so we can build a beautiful building that we work out of today, you know. Now, the VBA, in the past 5 years, when Tom mentioned that it should go, why is it that for 5 years he spoke about how good it was, then once he gets off, he wants to get rid of it? You know, that just doesn't make sense to me. It's not right. The VBA has done a great job, especially in the last 6-7 months, with all their events that they've had. They've been a positive money flow with that. I think in the past, there was no accountability, is what I see. Before you took me off of that as the liaison, I had talked to Mr. Ham and said, hey, we got a problem here. But right after that, you took me off, and then we did have the problem. And so luckily that when this board changed, that they were able to produce people from this community who are working bees. Okay, I'll make it quick. Just when you have a husband and wife who are very good workers and care about their downtown, when you have other board members who don't do a darn thing, when you have your events and participate, it's difficult. So tonight, look at the VBA as a positive thing for downtown, for the people. when you have, I'll be quick, okay? When you have a organization that you're giving $40,000 to, and they bring in hundreds and thousands of dollars from surrounding people from communities who do business. I was just told a couple days ago about the Mexican restaurant across the street who was involved with the Taste of Vista. His restaurant is primarily Latinos who go into his restaurant. Since he got involved with the VVBA and he did advertising and came to the VVBA, the Taste of Vista, his clientele is starting to change. He is now receiving Caucasians. So it's a good thing. So tonight, put aside any political things here and do what's right for the businesses and also for the community, so, and for the VVBA. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, Monica Shellhoop, followed by Cam Shellhoop.
Thank you. I want to thank you for letting me have a possibility of speaking with you. I am one of the 2 sets of wives and husbands that are currently on the VVBA. And I have to let you know that Tom Fleming was president at the time in which he and Janet had asked me to be promotions chair. I was not wanting that position. It was a position that was open that both of them pursued me to fill. So if he's not happy with the fact that he was one of the people who chose to have me as the wife of Cam Shellhoop, who is currently on the VVBA membership, that's his choice. He made that choice. So I don't know, I don't understand his problem with that. I'm just feeling very passionate about this. I came from a city up in LA, Whittier. It's where I'm from, a very strong historical city. I had a business there for 5 years, and I was very actively involved in the city then. When I came down here after I married Cam, I really didn't have any desire to participate within the city of Vista because I had already come from that. And I already enjoyed the participation in which I had in the city that I came from. And I really didn't think that I could have that kind of passion for another city. But I do. I do. This is my home. And I am a business owner. And I'm proud to be a business owner. And I am part of the Vista Village Business Association. I'm very proud now to be a part of that. We have had problems. We have had difficulties in working with each other. We have had problems in working with the past executive director because there was lack of communication and lack of support on working together between the executive director and the business owners and the people on the board. I encourage you to support the position 4. We're going in a positive direction. I can honestly say for the first time of being a member of the Vista Village Business Association, I am very passionate about it. And I want to be a part of it. I also now have stepped into the realm of being part of the city's art association. I encourage you to have faith in us. And I encourage you to come down and visit us. Visit our businesses. We'd like to see you too. Thank you.
Cam Shellhoop, followed by Stephanie Jackal. It says Dr. Kamal Shellhoop.
Mayor Ritter,
better known as Cam.
members of the council. My name is Cam Shellhoop. I own Shellhoop's Craftiques, and if you'll bear with me.
Speak up loud, Cam.
If you'll bear with me for a moment, I would like to give you a little bit of my background because I'm going to make 2 recommendations, and I'd like you to know where I'm coming from. First off, I hold a master's in business economics with an emphasis on organization and management and a PhD in public administration, which I received from Claremont Graduate School and had the privilege of studying under Peter Drucker for over 2 years. I think that uniquely, you're going to see that this package uniquely qualifies me to make these recommendations. Secondly, I chaired the Downtown Master Plan Committee, which came up with Specific Plan 26, and Mayor Ritter was on that committee.
Years ago.
We also shared the privilege of being on the Vista Town Center Association Board of Directors. We saw many changes. We saw a dynamic energy in that original board that has yet to be reproduced. We've seen this organization go through some serious hills and valleys. And over the last 6 months has been a traumatic time for this board. There have been many changes. Some tough decisions were made. Some people resigned from the board. What I will tell you at this time is we have a dynamic board. We have a board that's willing to get its hands dirty and do the work. We have our fiscal house in order. Yes, we had to let some people go, but that's because we couldn't afford it. We had a $19,000 shortfall, and we had to make some tough decisions. We made those decisions. We're on the road to recovery. I think the next year is going to be a very dynamic year. We have Gumaro, who has the educational background. He has the knowledge, the ability, and more importantly, the passion and the desire to make take this organization to the next level. It can be done. He will do it. And the board has the initiative and the desire to do that very thing, take us to the next level. If you support us financially and with the help of Kevin Ham and Rachel, I promise you, you will see some incredible things over the next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, my recommendation is, number one, that you stay with option 4. And if you don't want to do option 4, then go to option 5 and let's get rid of it.
Okay, Stephanie Jacko, followed by Sandy Adelson.
Good evening, Mayor Ritter, council members, and Mrs. Gellert. My name is Stephanie Jackal. I had the privilege of serving as executive director for VVBA for not quite 2 years, 2004 to 2006. It was an experience that I enjoyed tremendously. I remain a staunch fan of Vista's downtown and of the purpose for which the VVBA was established. I think it is a very essential thing to the downtown. I have read the staff report, which is very comprehensive, and I am dismayed to look at the first 3 options and number 5, which I feel would fragment and or eventually decimate the VVBA, which would lose the focus and direction of the National Main Street program, which the VVBA follows. Looking to the future, particularly as the demonstration block and Paseo Santa Fe, please God, come online, the purpose of the VVBA is going to be needed more than ever, not to mention right now with the existing businesses in downtown. Vista Village Business Association is very important to downtown Vista. If there were organizational problems which raised concerns and brought forth these options, then fix the problems. I am delighted to hear that the VVBA board is already addressing these, and it sounds as though they are doing it very thoroughly. I would say, please don't toss the baby out with the bathwater. Please support option 4 and retain the VVBA.
Sandy Adelson, followed by Denise Foster.
Mayor Ritter, council members, let me start by saying I am not a member of the BID. I do not own property, nor do I own a business. However, I am a realtor, and I do represent people who do business, who do own businesses, and do own property in that BID. This is not a discussion that's brand new. I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. We've heard it before. We have a great board. They're coming in. There's excitement. And a year, 2 years, 3 years later, the discussion is having all over again. By the way, I'm speaking in favor of option 5. I find it interesting Mr. Alisi puts up a pie chart with 13 people or 13% against the bid and 87% of the rest of the people. Why not have a pie chart that says 100% of the people either have an opinion or don't? He has to have known how many people are in favor of it, and yet he chose not to put that number up there. And I'm going to go ahead and say something else about Mr. Alisi. He represents the bid as leadership, and yet he enters businesses during business hours and calls out business owners when he's not happy about what they're saying. That's not the way you do business. If that's what the bid is all about, that's not something that should be happening. This is not something that's brand new. The bid's not working. Yes, maybe they've painted a building. Yes, maybe they've painted signs. Last barbecue, streets were supposed to be closed at 5 o'clock. Businesses had no way to get their people downtown because they closed the streets off at noon. You're not improving business down there. Maybe there are people out there who are saying that business is coming as a result of these functions. If what the intent of the bid is to bring great things to downtown so people can have fun, then let's take them out to Bengal Terrace Park and do it. Because you're not giving business to downtown, you're taking business away from downtown because people can't get there. I think it's wonderful that you have people coming in excited. I want to know what they're going to say 2 years from now. Mr. Lopez sat here and said somebody's saying there's no value. 20 years ago, Mr. Lopez stood here and said there was no value of the bid for the 600 block of Santa Fe. All of a sudden, there's value. I just think, I'm not saying end it. I'm saying at least suspend it and take a closer look at it, and then if the decision is to end it, end it. But I don't think that you should be going forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise Foster, followed by Chuck Rabel.
Hi, I'm Denise Foster. I have a business on Broadway and Citrus. My first comment is to correct Frank Lopez, who said Tom Fleming wanted it demolished. He did not. He was for option 1. Okay, that being said, where's my glasses? Are there? I'm going to read what I sent to John Aguilera. Okay. As one of the first board members of VVBA, I had hoped it would be something to be proud of, but I am not. I have a business on Broadway and Citrus. VVBA no longer helps businesses except for a few. We get no information on what's going on except for the last 2 months when Gramero came back. The flag pavilion has not been finished. I have gone through 3 Main Street managers, make it 4 because I didn't know about the woman from 204 to 206, never saw her. Trying to get a trash can down on Broadway and Citrus. There's one down by Broadway and Indiana farther down, none on Broadway and Citrus. Couldn't get it. I was told that I could get one through EDCO for a small fee, even though I'm paying a bid fee. I also called the city and managed to get the right person, Kevin Ham, who got me one in 1 week, and he is my hero. So I can't see what I need VVBA for when I have people at the city that respond much faster. And last thing, I also don't like it when people like John Alisi come into my business and start making comments to me in front of my customers about something he thinks I said that I didn't. I don't like being intimidated by other business people. I had 2 customers that said they'd complain, but who are you going to complain to? He was the president of the organization. I believe the city needs to keep a very close watch over this organization because I believe some of them are questionable. From being on the original board, we did street fairs. We didn't get money from the city. We did the flag pavilion and sold bricks. All those red bricks were $25 a piece. The bronze bricks were $1,000. The city gave us permits, but they didn't give us money for that. I just don't think that we need to give them that much money when we were able to do it without it. They should be able to do it again without it. I go for option 1, 2, or 5. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing. I noticed that everybody who voted for option 4 are all board members. Thank you.
Chuck Rabel.
Chuck Rabel, good evening, folks. Not associated with the bid, but question 1, if I can, just one question. When the city buys up these properties, does the city pay into the bid?
Mayor, would you?
Get more questions? Oh.
Just one, and then I'm going to address the subject, if I might.
The bid is a business-based improvement district, so businesses pay into it, not property owners.
Okay, so when the city buys the building and it sits empty, there is no revenue for the bid?
If there's a business that leases it, there is.
But just as if there's a property owner now and they don't have a business, but they own the property and there's no business in there, they don't pay either.
Well, I was talking about the city, thank you.
Okay.
Real quick, if you go through the history and the actions by City Council, there were 32 actions since 2002, not one negative vote. And to correct John Alisi, if I might, it was the Shadow Ridge Vista Rotary that teamed up on that paint job. And we also did we painted the urns, the big urns in front of the theater and Hennessy's. And the VVBA was very helpful going through the city, filling out the forms and answering all the questions to get past the committee here at City Hall just to let us volunteer to paint those urns. We also put a new sign up for the Vista Way that was knocked down, and I want to point out that it's a one-way street or alley, and it goes opposite the direction of the parade and the mural. Real quick, just a couple other quick things. The city's been involved forever. They're the senior partner, okay, of the VVBA. If you go to hold, for whatever reason, the VVBA accountable, city staff should also be held accountable. And back when you had to cut the budget for recreation and senior services, there was a criteria that the service had to be 70% cost recovered. If you do the math here, the VBA should get $24,000 in addition to the 55 through the bid. And with that, because, one other thing that you might consider, putting together an RFP for the Chamber and the VVBA to take over VizTix. They're going to be downtown. That's where the people go. They don't have to come to City Hall in order to buy tickets, and you could save money. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rabel. Next speaker is Cliff Kaiser.
Mayor, Council, I apologize for being tardy and not hearing the presentation, but I did review this discussion item that's on the agenda, and I'd like to make a couple of comments. Out of these 5 options, I believe that option 4 and 5 are definitely not advised. The VVBA and the Central Vista Business Improvement District need a lot of help, okay? They've got a lot of strong people there, strong souls, strong hearts, but it's not working right. There's a lot of improvement that has to happen to downtown. But it's not because of the people that are running it as much as it is the chicken and egg problem. If you bring a bunch of people down to downtown Vista, they've seen it once, it takes a while for them to forget what they've seen, and is there a need to come back? Okay? If I come back to the Strawberry Festival, okay, I'll come back next year. But what about all the other 364 days? Something has to happen in downtown Vista, and that's something I know you guys are trying to do with the Paseo Santa Fe and other improvements there, but it's not going to happen on the shoulders of the VVBA alone. You need a strong improvements made downtown, and you need a strong leadership that's running this organization, whether it be VVBA or some other entity. Out of the 3 other options that could be workable, I think option 1 is a good interim solution. As I read through how that might operate in here, I would urge caution in keeping that in place for too long a time where you have a board of people giving marching orders to an executive director every month. Okay? You need to set out a vision and a plan and let that entity execute that plan to make it happen. And if they're getting off course a little bit, sure, you steer the rudder back, but you can't have a committee, I don't think, run a strong organization for the downtown area.
Thank you. That is all of our speakers. That wraps up our speakers. So I'd be interested to, any of you? Councilmember Gronke.
I guess I'll be the first to weigh in here. I thought long and hard about this one, and in fact, I think Ms. Gelter will bear me out. When I first came on the council 10 years ago, I wondered why there was a VBBA and a Vita when we had a chamber that could do all that. Vita has since been disbanded. After it's been successful, it's accomplished its goal. VBBA has been, to me, up and down. Hasn't really accomplished what I would consider its goal, and that is to promote the downtown and to add value to those people within the bid. I mean, that's probably my major argument, is that people within the bid are not getting any money, any compensation, any reward for the money they put into it. So I just want to say several things that that come to mind after years of consideration on this. I think it's probably we should retain the VVBA, but I'd put it on a short leash because of what we saw tonight. To me, the VVBA is a business association. And what we saw tonight were people that had to be waved off because it becomes an emotional issue. And you can't run a good business and organization when emotions become too strong and they get in the way of good decision making. And I believe that's the history of the VVBA. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to suggest that we go with option 1 simply because I think there has to be some strong oversight. And if the VBA cannot get its act together within a year or two, I'd very much believe that maybe there should be another administrator that takes over it, whether it's their chamber or not. But I will give them that. What I would suggest to this council are several things. And again, after talking to staff about this, and the one thing I want to talk about staff is we are in lean times right now. And I don't want my staff wasting their time on the VVBA when they need to go out and beat the bushes for more business. And they've been doing that for too long. So what I would suggest, and again, I'm open for discussion on this, if we're going to continue to give money to this organization, that we give it as a loan rather than give it to them. If it's seed money that you need to put together some events, that's fine. But we're in such lean times that we can't ill afford to give you money and just have you keep it in the bank and gain interest on it when we need the money. So I would suggest that if we give money, that it come in the form of a loan. I would also suggest that in this very small part to create jobs in our city, that I would dedicate a good portion of that amount to facade improvements and improvements within the city. Because I think you make enough money off of your events that you can continue providing your events. That's why I'm looking at your books. Your books tell me that you have enough that you can continue with your events. And I would hope that you would get more than a rod run and a barbecue. And I've been to rod run barbecue for years and years and years, and you do a bang-up job. I have no complaints about that. But if your charge is to improve the downtown, then you haven't met your goal. You've brought people into our town. You've brought people that come in maybe once or twice a year to an event, but they haven't really come to Vista to shop. And I think you need to look at that and say, what are we doing to accomplish that goal? Because to me, that's your real charge. So I'll continue later on, but I'd start with that.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguilera.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'm not against VVBA. I do want it to work, but it just hasn't, from what I've heard here tonight and what I've seen in the past. We want to make changes really just to improve VVBA, but mostly to improve our downtown, bring people down there. And I think option one offers a lot of possibilities to do that. It gives council a little more control on what happens with the money that we spend or they spend. I think the biggest thing that most business owners are looking for with their money is accountability. And let's face it, this is a tax, and people want to know how the money's being spent. And they want that money to be spent properly, and they want to see some benefit. I'm a small business owner. Every time I spend $1 in my office, I want to know what it's going to and how it's going to benefit my business and my clients. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish here. This organization has been around for many years in many different forms, and I think if you look back at the history, there hasn't been always the accountability that business owners are looking for. I, too, support the idea of a little bit more visual improvements. I think that's something that people can be held accountable on, or something that businesses can look at and say, here's some improvements, here's where my money's being spent. And I think the idea of pointing out Tom Fleming and his business, I agree with Councilman Gronke. I think what we witnessed tonight is a good reason as to why this is such an important discussion here, and why you guys are in front of us. It's not the VVBA necessarily that we're looking at. It's the bid. I mean, that's what our discussion is. So, I mean, tonight we're not going to abolish VVBA, or we're not going to make VVBA. We are going to make adjustments to how the city's money is spent. We collect $55,000 to $60,000. In addition to that, which is not really part of the agenda tonight, we give you $40,000, which I'm starting to find out is going to have to come out of our general funds. So we're talking about $100,000. These are real dollars. I did vote against the bid in March because I felt that we needed to see some change. I can support option one because I think at this point in time, you know, the bid's going to happen. We've already collected, I believe, $33,000 of the bid money, so that's not going to stop. We already voted. I lost that vote. At this point, I just want to find a way that we can make the bid more effective for business owners downtown. I have some questions. I don't know if we want to go into that. I do have some questions for maybe Mario, President. My first question I had written down before this evening was, is there a business plan that's in place? I know I've seen something that's in our packet here, but now I got something that was handed just a few minutes before the meeting started that said a financial plan, but is there an actual business plan for this organization?
Yes, there is. There's one in place. We're working with Kevin's Ham with that. One of the things that we've done is to, you know, we hired an attorney to tweak our bylaws. I think it's very important that any organization have strong bylaws. I think that's something that we weren't intended to in the past, and we've made that a focus. Also, as far as the business plan, as far as the new staffing we have done, instead of 90% of funds generated from you was going to staffing before, we have now within that target point between 35 to 45%. With that, there'll be a great improvement. It'll bring enough revenue. We can start expanding our events. We can start making it a point to improve on our Facade business program. And we do reach out to our business owners and to get involved with the VVBA, come up on the board. What you see tonight in front of you is people that are involved with the VVBA. It's a very small percentage. There should be a lot more involvement in this organization. And as the new president, I'm going to make it my mission to do that. I'm going to make it my mission that people will want to come up on the VVBA and participate. I will make it my mission to go out to the bid areas and talk to the business owners. That has not been done before. I'm going to make it my mission to make a newsletter that we once had. We got away with it. And our bid members don't know anything of what's going on. That was mentioned tonight. I want to sort up all the problems that we have faced, but with the strong board that we now have, it's an exciting looking forward. I am looking forward to do all the recommendations that you're making. I embrace what Steve Gronke just said. I want the challenge. I want to do that. This organization wants that challenge. Yes, we're kind of got a big burden on our back for the sins of our father, if I quote a phrase, but we're up to the task. We have now in place the ability to expand on our events, to bring value to our membership. That's what you were hearing tonight. We want value for the money that they have to pay.
Does that answer your question?
Okay, yes, it
Before
does.
He goes.
I hope I answered it.
Campaign's over, buddy. Actually, I did want to make a comment. Since Gamaro's joined the organization, there seems to be a lot more organization. I did see his emails earlier in the year where he basically what's in that packet, and so I think he's putting a lot of positive work in. So I'm excited to see what he can accomplish. So what programs can we expect to see? I know Mr. Gronke was talking about, you know, hey, we've got 3 or 4 things that go on each year. What programs can we see? What can we really see as far as a change in 30 seconds?
Yeah, okay. The programs that we are going to implement is, one, we are going to implement expanding our communication level to our bid members. That's our number one. We have to find value for our bid members, and we're going to have communication. That's essential. The other goal we have is to expand on the events, to expand on the Rod Run participation, to tweak the numbers and make those numbers better for everyone involved, not only for us as an organization for downtown. The other things that we're going to be implementing is the Facade improvement program. We have the mural going. Right now we're talking about lighting the downtown. That's another big goal that we have, is to put year lights in downtown to make it look attractive, to bring a focus. Steve Gronke said that, Councilman Gronke said, you need to have a focus for downtown. You need to show improvements. Part of painting the urns was part of that improvement. Also, lighting the downtown is essential. We've been working on that. We're talking about a farmer's market downtown. I've talked to business owners like John Randall for Curbside. What would he like to see downtown? I've talked to Leroy at Hennessy's. What would you like to see? I'm spreading the news. What do the business people in downtown want?
Okay.
And that we're going to implement that.
And then how will the accountability be taken care of?
Well, the accountability will be this: we have to see you next year, right? We're in a fiscal. We got to stand up here, and you're going to remember what we said. They're going to remember what we said, and we have to be accountable for that. And you know what? I can't wait.
Your Rod Run and barbecue was very successful this year, from all accounts, at least from your perspective. It seemed like it was. I was there myself.
Yeah.
You guys ran out of food pretty early. I barely got some chicken.
We couldn't keep the cash boxes.
Do you plan on
fast.
having success on the
Yes.
Rod Run next year?
Yes, we do. One of the things that happened to us during this Rod Run was that there were 100 more cars, about 100 cars, that registered on the same day as the event. We've never had that before. We've had some cars register, maybe 30 cars on the day of the event. The barbecue, nobody knew that we would have those numbers, but we did. And what we're doing is we're planning for the barbecue. One of the things that are that we're talking through the promotions committee is opening up to other venues in the barbecue to enhance it. So it won't be just a barbecue. Maybe we can work something along in the lines of opening that up. So we're looking at ways to expand our events, and we're also working on new ones. It was mentioned that we put up here that Ken Reese, I believe, that we do something every month. You have to also remember, when you do something like that, then the business owners, how are they going to feel about that? Okay. How about, closing down something once a month? That's another thing I heard. I heard from...
Mario, let me stop you. I think, I see the enthusiasm, and I appreciate that. I think that's what this organization needs. And I think as far as the planning of events, at least the few that I've attended, they've been very successful this year. And I think you guys are a great planning group. I think the issue that I've had, and I think Councilman Gronke probably has, coming back to that accountability, is really counting the money, figuring out how to spend the money. And the reason I asked about the barbecue and the Rod Run is the balance sheet that was part of the staff report here. It's titled as an annual work plan. But for next year, it says the 2012 Rod Run and barbecue, you expect revenues of $1,500. And I know that's a mistake.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything like that.
Okay.
I don't know of any information.
I have a feeling it was misplaced on the balance sheet. $45,000 is expected for the 2011. So I'm a numbers guy. Yeah. I look at this right away. I mean,
right.
Those are I think those are the problems that we might have with the organization. Is, I think you guys knew this was very important to myself, all of council, to the 260 bid members. And to have a mistake like that on the balance sheet is a grave error. And I think that's why we're leaning towards more supervision of the organization, at least our part of the money that we're contributing to that organization.
Well, remember, too, that we also, through the city, is that we let you know, part of our partnership, as you will, you're always aware of what we're doing, okay? And you're also aware of all the numbers that transpire for each event that we do. We don't shield that from you. We don't try to, what we try to do is give you the most accurate figures that we have. And I can tell you by moving forward, it's even going to be more transparent. We're looking at more ways to make it accountable. Gamaro's worked hard at that. He probably could speak more clearly on that. He's the one that prepared that. And everything right now is being discussed. When we have a meeting, everything is discussed out. Everything that we talk about is discussed out. And if we have a problem or we don't know what it is, we usually ask Kevin Ham, help us out here. And so moving forward, we understand the problems that you've brung up, and this is part of our goals. Our goal is to strengthen this organization. The only way that's going to happen is by having a strong board. We have a strong board now. We have Gamaro on staff. We can definitely move forward.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mario.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do you have more questions?
I'm good, thank you.
You're good? Okay.
For now.
Councilmember Coles.
Yes, thank you. I think what we're experiencing here this evening is the evolution of an organization. And I hope that we can help this evolve into something that really benefits downtown Vista and all of Vista. Years ago, there were 3 dynamic groups that were intent on enhancing the economic and business atmosphere of Vista, the Vita, and that was primarily the business park influence, the Chamber, and VVBA. The difference is Vita and the Chamber are basically organizations where members they volunteer to join and to pay their dues and to participate. And that spirit of volunteerism is what leads to the strength, and it's also kind of what happened with Vita, I think. After several years, they really accomplished what they wanted to do, which was establish a strong presence in the state and the nation of a business park here in Vista, and they basically turned over what they were doing to the Chamber to kind of, I mean, that was my impression at the time. I was involved with all the organizations when I was the superintendent of schools, and it was a very friendly, amicable change of how that organization worked. The VVBA, on the other hand, through the bid, basically this was a group of business people, and if I'm wrong, you can correct me, who said, let us form an association here and help us, city, to be successful. We need money, and so we need to have a fee that is mandatory on the part of the business owner. So it's not voluntary. I mean, the people who are in this district must pay a fee, and in return for that fee, they're hoping they're going to get the bang for the buck. And they can't just say we're not unhappy and walk away, because they still pay the fee. And so the city, this wasn't the city that said we're going to impose this on you businesses. The business came to us and said, please help us impose this. And now we're caught holding the bag when there are divisions within the people who are paying the fee. And I don't like that. I mean, it's not we're not the ones to blame. We want to help these businesses thrive. We want to help them work together. And what I'm hearing tonight doesn't sound like that's what's been happening. And even with the excitement of some of the new leadership, there's still some questions. So I think we have to take our responsibility since we are in fact the pursers. I mean, we're gathering the money to hand it out. We have to put our brand on this. We have to make sure that we're helping support those unrepresented, those people who weren't here tonight, who aren't on the board, to get what they are hoping to get out of their annual fee. And I think one thing I heard, and I appreciated all the speakers, both the ones who support what's existing and those who wouldn't want to see small alterations. But one thing I thought really hit me strongly was there's a difference between holding an event that people come to once a year because they have a nice hot rod or because they want a barbecue, and doing something to enhance the daily, weekly foot traffic, shopping traffic in downtown Vista. I mean, those are two really distinct differences in what the objective, I think, needs to be. Because the annual events are great, the Strawberry Fest, the Rod Run, the barbecue. We get attention from, you know, the regional press on those things. But does it bring business and foot traffic on a daily basis? I think the visual enhancement helps that. If you have somebody come once a year and the visual enhancement they see says, I'm going to go back there to shop for some clothing or for some antiques or whatever, then you have that foot traffic that continues. So I guess I've always wondered why the downtown merchants couldn't be well served by attaching themselves to the chamber, and that was I mean, I thought of it before it was suggested, because you get economy of scale. I mean, really, we're all doing the same things. The Vita, the chamber, both have the same effort. The chambers is broader based, larger ranging, and VVBA is much more focused on the area that we see in the map. And it seems like, and this is not going to be something we're going to do now, because my intent, I'll tell you off the bat, is to go along with option one with some features of option two. I think we need to earmark some of that money back to the areas and that it's coming from. But I would like to see maybe some thought given to forming a very almost autonomous subcommittee within the chamber that represents the downtown business folks, unique, because they have a unique subset of what the chamber is all about. And it's just a conceptual idea. I certainly haven't thought it through in terms of how it could technically work or how it could work on a long-term basis. But I think it's certainly something that we should look at, because a lot of I am troubled with the budget sheet that we were given, or the work plan, because some of the things just the numbers didn't line up with the items. I looked down here at the administration, and there's a $29,000 amount in the expense for the 2012 budget, that there's no line item that says what that is to go for. I don't know. So with that in mind, I'm prepared to explore the possibility of having us approve option one.
Do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to support that. I like the idea. I was wondering if we could do something, a combination of 1 and 3.
1 and what?
3. Well, really more what Councilman Coles was talking about, and having the chamber somehow represented on the bid board, maybe as one of the advisory board members. Is that a possibility?
Well, thinking of option one, you can alter the board to include possibly a chamber representative. The council could have 4 appointees. The VVBA could have 3, and you could have any number of other folks you want. I will caution you, though, we all work with committees, and if you get much larger than 7, 8, even 9, it starts to become very difficult to manage.
Okay.
And if I may, I don't know about the VVBA's. Looking at all the financials, I can't speak to all the questions, but the $1,500 item you mentioned, in looking at it, what happens is the VVBA's rod run is right on the cusp of the new fiscal year. So what happens is they get income in prior to the beginning of the next fiscal year. So that really represents revenue they receive at the tail end of the existing fiscal year we're in. And my guess is if we looked at their 12-13 budget, you would see the bulk of those numbers there, but they're not here.
Yeah, we'll go over it.
Can I have a turn before you guys keep going on the motions and all the things?
You're the
maybe?
boss.
Because I have a few, I've been taking notes here, and I'm going to regress a little bit because I go back a lot of years with this group. And the downtown, and I'm going to go back and tell you that the downtown is the window to our city. And it isn't just the Krikorian Center. It's the historic downtown, and it's Paseo Santa Fe. It's a window. When we first did, Cam and I were first on that board, nobody knew where downtown in Vista was. Kind of like San Marcos doesn't have a downtown, Vista, nobody knew where the downtown was. The purpose of the Main Street program, which is what we started, we were a demonstration city for the Main Street program, and the purpose of that was to bring people downtown so they could see the businesses that were there, and that would, maybe they wouldn't shop during that particular thing, but they would come back and they would say, oh, there's a chiropractor down here, or there's a restaurant or whatever. So one of the problems with our downtown is they're not all merchants per se. They're not, a lot of not retail people. They're, chiropractors and nail people, and some of them don't. They aren't making sales. They aren't retail. So when they feel like they're not getting their money's worth, when you have people come downtown, but people do notice they're there, and people go to those businesses maybe at a later time. That I would say that. The Main Street program was a 4-point program. I hear them saying they're going to now go back and start working the Main Street program, which they haven't done so much in the past. We were a demonstration city for a Main Street program back in the other years. And now I think now that I'm looking at them, and I see new leadership. I know the back row is not going to be happy with me saying this, but I do see new energy and new leadership, and I'd like to give them a chance to show what they can do, because they have new dedication, and I think emotion is good. That when they're emotionally involved, they want to make this downtown work. They want to make it nicer. So I'm supporting that. I think I don't have a problem with them contracting someone to take the events as long as they make money on it. I always kind of felt like that maybe you needed to have a special event coordinator, and that would be the person you hire that person to do the special events. When we talk about the money, the Main Street manager was always paid from the very beginning. The city always paid for the Main Street manager's salary. That was the beginning. And somebody can correct me on that, but I think that I remember was that the city always gave that grant, and then the bid came in at a later time, because the city always paid the Main Street manager, and then they raised money on their events, and then the bid came in at a later time. Actually, the city council asked us as members of the VTCA then to put the bid in, and ask the businesses if they would help support it. The VVBA has never been self-sufficient. It never has, and because it has such a small group of businesses that the bid supports. The chamber goes out. It has a business park. It has Shadow Ridge businesses. It has North Santa Fe. It covers the whole town. VVBA focuses on the downtown, which I think is important. I think we need them down there. And one thing on financials, I had a little trouble with them also, but I think you need to break out the rod run and the barbecue event. Those should be like 2 events, actually, in my opinion. And what you bring in on each event, that would be. The business, I'd like to see a broader representation probably on the board. But again, you need to have people that will work on the board. You need to have people they're willing to volunteer, that have that passion for downtown, that will do that. And the board's elected by the businesses, so we don't have any control over that. That's the business. They put a slate out there. You can actually do write-in candidates, but the people are elected by the businesses. Whatever. What else do I have here? In the past, I was going to say that we had problems in the past. When I served a couple times as president on the VTCA or VVBA, we actually had to fire executive directors before in the past. We had some problems. the business, it kind of comes and goes. I mean, it has times when it's stronger and it's much more active, and there's times when it's not as active. And I realize they've had a struggle for the last year, but I see new energy coming in, and I'm thinking it's okay. So anyway, so I would like to give them another year and give them a chance. They have to come back to us in a year, or we can look at them in 6 months and say, you know, how are they doing in 6 months? But I just think we need to give the new board a chance, and that's where I stand. So, and then one other thing I would say about you guys in the back row, that you're the same people that used to come back when I was a president and complain and didn't like the VVBA or VTCA. So you guys, most of you didn't like it back then either. So, you know, I'm just listening. So anyway, that's where I stand. So, okay, so now I'll go on. So, John, do you have something to say, or just Steve? Councilman Gronke.
Yes, I do. I kind of like the direction that Mr. Coles was going. Yeah, I was willing to give them a year, but more historically, I think we've given them 10. And I've heard promises before. I've heard enthusiasm before. And I have to come back to what I envision the Downtown Business Association being, and what I've heard several times tonight of what their goal is, and that is the barbecue and the rod run. Well, the barbecue and rod run are events, and as events, they could be run by anybody that can make it profitable. So whether the VBBA oversees that or the chamber oversees that doesn't make any difference to me, as long as it represents our city well and you make some money in the process. So if we were to go with a hybrid model, and I look at Mr. Hamm, and I know that I said earlier that I want to take some of the burden off your back, but if we can, in the short term, extend some energy on your part to make a better model, then I'm all for it. So I would be more than open to maybe saying that we table this, come back with some additional considerations for the future, and maybe at the next meeting talk about a hybrid model, or unless you want to come up with an idea right now, because I think we all have ideas of where this could go, and maybe where it should go. And so,
Councilmember Coles.
I'd like to. Am I on? Yeah. I don't want to just keep tabling this. You know, we need to address it and come up with a solution. And I don't think option one is doesn't give the board a chance to do what they, use their leadership, their excitement to keep it going. But I think the city has put a lot of money over the years into this, and when the bid tax or the bid fee was put in place, my understanding, of course I wasn't around, and Mayor, you may know better than I, was that would help them become self-sufficient. That would help them become, more or less stand alone without subsidy from the city.
That wasn't true.
Oh, I didn't know. I was somebody, or I somehow got that impression. But that some of the other organizations are able to do that. I don't see why option one wouldn't allow the new leadership to continue with their enthusiasm and their direction with just some additional, we're paying into this and we're holding the bag when things go wrong. Why shouldn't we be able to appoint some representatives onto that advisory board? And they have to be people who are party to the downtown. These are people who are members of the bid that we would be appointing, but it would give us at least some feeling that we have input into the leadership that we're holding the responsibility for, and let's see how that works. We can come back after a year and see if that worked or not.
Councilmember Aguilera, Mayor Pro Tem Aguilera.
I agree. I think option one still allows VVBA to show us what they can do, but I don't believe that we should head down the same path. If we've been doing this for 10 years, same results, as people have mentioned earlier, we're going to get the same results again, most likely. That I've learned in business and in everything that I do. We've got to make a change and come back a year from now and see if that change is improved, made it worse, made it the same, and evaluate. That a change is necessary. Chamber does not pay bid fees?
They do, as a nonprofit, and they pay one half the rate.
So they would be able to be appointed on the board then. I can support option one. I'll make that motion to go with option one.
You have a second?
Can we have further discussion?
What did you say?
Any other motion? Who has further discussion?
Did you second?
Judy did.
No, I didn't second. Oh, I didn't second that.
Oh, you did not second it.
No, I was looking for a second.
I'll go ahead and second it, but I would like to have clarification on our contribution. Is that up for discussion right now, or is there, you're just looking for direction?
You said yes.
We're looking for direction on how you'd like to have us work on managing the CVBID. We will bring back, based upon the discussion today, looks like probably sometime a month from now, the contract, if it were to go with option one with the Vista Village Business Association. We also would need to appoint those individuals from the business community, and I would ask that the council put together maybe a selection group, an interview panel, so we can interview those individuals and then bring them back along with the contract.
And it would be similar to the commission appointments that you make, as far as the process could be applications filed, and then council could interview those candidates. But yes, you are also providing direction on the $40,000.
Excuse me?
You are providing direction to us on the $40,000 also.
Well, then I will go back to my original statement and say that I would say let's do this as a loan, whether it's $20,000 or $40,000. I would say it as a loan, and I would put stipulations towards the facade improvements and other capital improvements, because again, looking at their books, I think they have enough money from the bid and from what they get from their events to accomplish the goals of continuing with the events that they personally have and even more. So
I don't agree with you, because I think that they need more. They need the money so they can have someone in administration, whether it's a manager or whatever it is, and I don't think they would have the money to do that without that grant. And one other thing I would say, you keep saying everything needs to change. I think maybe internally they need to change some things, but if you look at our downtown, their vacancies are very low. The downtown looks pretty darn good in the, here we are in the big recession, but our events have been successful down there. The downtown looks good. We have very low vacancy downtown. We don't have any boarded up buildings. I mean, believe me, some cities look pretty bad if you go out there, but I think that that's one of the things. They're kind of subtle things, but they've kept a stable downtown, a steady. So when you look for change, be careful what you look for. If you don't have a VVBA, then I don't know that the chamber would take over just the downtown part of it. They have a wider view of that. So anyway, so you have a motion and a second.
Could I ask just a follow-up question on Councilman Gronke's issue with the funding? Are these maybe two separate items that we need to address? I mean, one is the structure, and another one is the funding. This assumption of the $40,000 grant or subsidy that the city provides. What are we voting on? Are we voting on a structural option, or are we also voting on the city's contribution? Because the city's contribution has suddenly changed. I mean, it used to be we had other pots of money we could draw from that we don't have anymore. So we need to consider that more fully.
Was it budgeted? I don't know if it was budgeted, the 40?
$40,000 was budgeted, and however, that was before the state. Also, the economic development budget, it's where it resides, and the $40,000 was basically paid in past years by 2/3 of it coming from redevelopment monies. So approximately $26,000 is from redevelopment. It was in the past, but it can no longer be that way, given where we are with the freeze of redevelopment funds now. So the economic development budget on those types of things, with 100% of whatever is in there will have to come back to the general fund. So in the past, the general fund has paid $13,333 for the approximately for the 1/3, 2/3 split. And so now, whatever amount it is, whatever you decide on, if it's the $40,000, that just needs to come from the general fund.
I guess my fear also is that I'm not sure that they can, and you can ask them, I'm not sure that they can survive. If you take away that $40,000, I'm not sure that the VVBA will be able to survive on that. You can ask the members, I don't know. I see some heads shaking one way. I don't know.
Well, I wasn't suggesting taking it away. I just wondered if this is a...
Well, even as a loan, how would they pay it back? I mean, how
I have a question, because my original motion was with the intention of just the bid, the CV. Is that what we're talking about, just the bid right now, or are we including the 40,000?
Well, I think that what the city manager was indicating is that tonight, those are issues that we need to understand so we can come back to you. The CVBID, we have to understand the direction you want to go with what options so we can bring that back to you. But understanding what direction you'd like to go with the monies on the city's behalf is important, because that's what we're going to bring back to you for approval.
Okay. So we can still go with the original motion.
And I think if we're going to help restructure the organization, I'm not opposed to giving them the same playing field to work from. So if we go with a new structure that we hope will advance the cause and enhance everything that's going to be done, I don't want to handcuff that effort by taking money away from what they're going to need to survive a year. And then let's see what happens in a year. Maybe they'll be so vibrant and successful that they'll be giving us extra money. I mean, that's my optimistic outlook. That's certainly how Mario sounds.
Okay, Councilmember Gronke.
Again, I go back to, this is a nonprofit, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. So it's a nonprofit. So that means they're using our money, which is the taxpayers' money, to run their operations when we give them $40,000 as seed money. So if their books are true and they're carrying over some money annually, then they're really gaining interest on my constituents' money. That's why I look at it. So if they're carrying over $20,000 and we're giving them $40,000, I don't see why we don't give them $20,000 as a loan that they pay back after their events. It seems to me that it's our money. No, it's not even my money. It's the people, the citizens of Vista's money if it comes from the general fund. It's not the VBBA's money. Why should they be gaining interest on our money?
Why do you think they're carrying over money? Why do you think they're carrying over money?
I think they do.
They just laid off because they were how much short last year?
They're broke.
They're broke, so I don't know where the money's coming from. Yes, Councilmember Coles.
Interest rates being what they are today, I'll kick in $10 to pay for the interest that you'll lose. But I mean, if that were really a case, our payment could be incremental instead of one lump sum, but it's easier to do it lump sum. So I'm not too concerned about that aspect of it. I mean, if we could start collecting 20% on our cash, then we might charge a little interest on, but that's
Is that part of your motion?
No, that's not part of the motion. That's not part of the motion.
Okay, can we? Oh,
I think what we're doing tonight,
has something to say here.
We're trying to formulate a proposal that staff can bring back to us at the next meeting that we can then adopt. We're not really adopting something now, or are we? I don't know. That's what I don't understand. Yeah.
City Manager.
Correct. The question is are you adopting anything tonight? And the answer is that you're to provide direction to staff on which option you would like to have, and then the implementation of that option. it appears, it sounds like there's a pretty strong consensus on, from what you said, on option one, which is basically the decisions that you have is, do you agree with the work plan that's set before for the bid, and the items associated with that, with the proposed budget. That's one. Number two is that if you're selecting option one is that then the process for the advisory board for within that is the 4 council appointments, and the process, if you wanted it similar to a commission advertisement, and to have notices go out to those that are eligible to be on the board. That would be pretty simple to do within the structure that we have, and then you would interview those, and along with, you would have to select, if that's the makeup that you decide to have, 3 of the current VVBA board members that would be able to serve also. So then you would have the makeup of the board. And then the additional item, you would have to bring back a policy amendment on that, because right now the policy states that you have to select VVBA board members. So you would be making a policy change. Then the last item would be the amount of money that is provided. And so if you're going with option one and the board makeup, it's almost as if it was starting back 10 years ago, and when you first appointed the board, the council first appointed a board. It's just a little bit different of how the process of how you go about doing that. But you're not suggesting that the bid be operated any differently. It sounds like you're wanting to give it certainly a solid year to make sure that it continues to perform with the momentum that you've all discussed and mentioned that they have. And so I think that that's what you're recommending to staff, unless I'm trying to summarize what I have in your comments here, and then the city attorney might want to add to that also.
The only thing that I would add is that it's actually an ordinance change that we have to make in terms of the membership on the board. It's embodied in a municipal code ordinance, not in a policy.
Because the bid board is different from the VBA board, so that's the point in this.
Yes, the conceptual issue here is that the VBA is a private, nonprofit organization with whom the city contracts currently to manage the business improvement district, and at the same time appoints the members of that board as the advisory board, the statutory advisory board to the BID. Obviously, the VVBA can continue to exist if it chooses to do so, with or without its role in the bid. And so what you're really determining here is how the bid itself will be managed, and how its funds will be managed. And it sounds like through option one, you're looking to basically alter the advisory board from being solely members of the VVBA, but to nonetheless contract with the VVBA as the manager of the funds with guidance from that advisory board.
Okay. Councilmember Coles.
Yeah, part of the direction, the budget sheet we got for the work plan.
We can't hear you.
The budget sheet that we have for the work plan, next time could we get the lines to line up so that I understand what some of these things mean? And I don't, as far as the work plan, I don't want us to get in the position of micromanaging the activities. These are successful business people who have degrees and know how to draw in customers, and that's what that board should be. I mean, I don't want to pretend to tell them what is a successful way to attract business and customers into Vista, but I do want to help them have successful management and administration, and whatever I can do to help that's what I want to do.
What do you see the duties of the advisory board to be then?
Well, the advisory board is going to be members. I mean, these are downtown business people, who are on that advisory board that we appoint.
What if
I'm not appointing, my next door neighbor in Shadow Ridge. I'm appointing a business owner, a bid-paying person to be on the board who I'm going to be able to get some flavor for their thoughts on how to manage this association.
What if they say, no, we don't want to give them money for the rod run or something like that? Do they have to apply for all the money for that, for those
Well,
things?
this is going to be a board. I see this as a 7-member board.
And they do what? They handle the money, and the VVBA applies for the money? Is that how it goes?
No.
No,
What do
they approve it. They control, monitor the money. I mean, they have a budget.
Then how does the VVBA, how do they interact with them? With the board? Because they're different. This board has the money, and this board is the board of directors. So
well, maybe that's what needs to happen.
Well, I think this is what Kevin has to go back and reformulate how that's actually going to work. But you would have a separate board that would manage $100,000 in this case, and they would manage their own money as well. But they're going to have board members on that board. So
there are only 3, so they can be voted out. So
There are 2 ways.
the VVBA is still managing the money. It just the decisions have to go through that advisory board.
The way that, Mayor, we've proposed it, and this can be changed, is that the advisory board would oversee the day-to-day operations. The way I hear the discussion going is that the work plan would stay in place as proposed by the VVBA, and at the time that they wore the hat, they were the CVBID advisory board when they proposed it to us. The advisory board now, as structured under this new structure, would oversee the day-to-day activities. And essentially, the CVBID advisory board would be contracting with, the city would be contracting with the VVBA like we would a private consultant. And they'd be undertaking the program of work as directed by the CVBID advisory board on day-to-day activities.
Okay. So do we have, do you need, we have a motion on the floor. Do you want? And a second. So you want
And that included really the only structure changing is the selection of the 7 members, because you also have to appoint, when we come back, the 3 VVBA members who are also bid-paying dues members, and then the 4 additional board members from the applications that are sent out. And then everything else, the work plan is adopted, everything else is approved, and the $40,000 is what you're suggesting. Is that okay? So we have direction if you have consensus on that.
Okay. So I guess then we need to vote on it, right? Oh, okay, Councilmember Gronke. I thought that was an old.
Okay, so we are voting on the structure, and we're not voting on the money.
No, we're on the money too.
And the money is going to be at $40,000 as a contribution.
Not necessarily.
Let me.
We have to put that into a motion then.
Madam Mayor, may I just
Councilmember
express what I
Coles.
think we're voting on? We're voting on a structural recommendation for staff to put together in a final package for the full council to vote on at a subsequent meeting. We're not voting on the money right now.
No, I thought the money was included. I thought she said the money was included.
Well,
in
if
that.
it's included, fine. Then include it. Yes.
Okay. So
Is that?
oh,
is
now
that-
we have the attorney, Attorney Piper.
The city manager has summarized what appears to be the consensus position here. That is really all that staff needs, and at this point, actually, it would be difficult to record what the motion is. So I think with this consensus, which will help us bring back in a month the actual documents and proposals, if the motion were withdrawn, we'll just proceed with the consensus advice to staff rather than try to embody this in a formal document.
We okay with that?
Yeah.
Motion
This is
withdrawn,
not a vote
second
to
withdrawn.
implement something. This is a vote to give direction for
We're not
what
gonna
we're going
vote.
to implement down
We're not going to vote. We're withdrawing the motion, so we're just going to give them direction, or they have their direction, sounds like. Okay. So are we done? Is everybody, nod their head yes?
Wait, hold on a second. So we're not going to vote?
They've got
just giving
direction, and they're going to
voting.
bring the package back to us.
Okay.
And they said to withdraw your motion and your second, if that's agreeable with you. Is that agreeable? Shake your head yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
As
Oh,
this-
Steve is, Councilor Gronke's not shaking his head yes.
Steve is going to weigh in here. I did second this, and I really think there's an opportunity for us to make a decision here tonight. I mean, I would prefer it that way. I would just open that back up. I know it's late, and we've been talking about this for a long time, but...
What would your motion be?
What would your motion be?
My motion would be, again, to take it down to 20,000 and take it as a loan.
Wait, I can't hear you.
That probably
Wait.
won't go over, but
I can't hear you say it.
I would say make it 20,000 and make it as a loan, and I think...
That's your motion?
And that's my motion along with the structure of number one.
Do I have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. So will you?
But can't we still make the motion option one? I mean, isn't that really what we're talking about? Can't we just at least pass that?
We have been instructed to bring back option one, and we will do that.
Okay.
Because
You've
All right.
been
that
instructed him to
requires
bring
an
that
We don't
back.
need to vote on
ordinance
that.
and everything
All right,
else.
that's
We
fine
don't
then.
require a vote
Let's
for
go.
that.
May I just, I think what I understood, Councilman Gronke was trying to, at this point, just limit the funding level. But I would just appeal to you that if we're changing a structure, I don't want to handcuff, to create any potential for failure of our effort to help this organization thrive and grow and be what we want it to be.
So now everyone shake your head yes. Shake your head yes. Okay. Okay, you want to take a 5-minute break? Just 5 minutes though. Let's make it 5, okay, guys? Just so we can breathe. Oh, jeez. Oh, sorry. Get that. Okay, our 5 minutes is up, so everybody please come back. Okay. Okay. Okay, as soon as our city manager comes back, we'll start. She's just waiting for Rita. She wanted to get some water. Huh? I don't know. We believe it's not live though. It comes. It's on Friday. Okay, because you got your Vista shirt on. What about Rancho? We have to have 2 colors. I have to go both. My kids went to Vista, yes, and my grandkids go to Rancho. You got to support both schools. Luckily, we don't have 3. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're going to call us back to order. And our next subject is our Alternative Voluntary Redevelopment Program, and we'd like to have a report first, and then I might have one speaker.
And at this time, before Mr. Meyer introduces himself and Mr. Zinner, is that we wanted to make a comment, is that discussion items 3 and 4 are tandem. So discussing really both of them. One doesn't go without the other.
Okay.
Thank you. Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is John Meyer. I'm the Interim Director of Redevelopment and Housing. For over 2 decades, the City of Vista has had an active and successful redevelopment program. However, the ability to continue this tradition has been threatened with the recently adopted California state budget. 2 trailer bills were adopted with this budget. The first, AB 26, effectively dissolved all redevelopment agencies. AB 27 allows the city to reinstate its agency. However, in order to do so, a city must adopt an ordinance and make a remittance payment to the state. For this fiscal year, the City of Vista's contribution is estimated at $6.2 million. It is estimated at $1.5 million per year thereafter. This year's payments are due in 2 installments, paid in January and May of 2012. As detailed in the staff report, staff believes the potential loss in direct and indirect revenues is far greater from opting out than opting in. As provided in the budget legislation, the City of Vista has appealed the estimated remittance payment. Our appeal is based on the fact that we have issued debt since fiscal year 2008-2009, which is what the State Department of Finance estimates are based on. A successful appeal would lower our payments. The California Redevelopment Association and the League of California Cities have filed a lawsuit with the state Supreme Court claiming that AB 26 and 27 are unconstitutional. The court has agreed to hear the case and has committed to rendering a decision before January 15, 2012. The lawsuit also asked for a stay, which was only partially granted. Unfortunately, the partial stay impacts the Commission by preventing us from entering into any new contracts or amending any existing agreements or contracts. The stay has also made it necessary for the City to adopt an enforceable obligation payment schedule. This schedule operates as a fund control, identifying existing debt and limits payments only to those debts listed on the schedule. By adopting the schedule, the Commission maintains maximum flexibility under the present circumstances. In closing, staff believes the dissolution of the Commission would be detrimental to the health, safety, and economic well-being of the residents of the city. The redevelopment activities and projects made possible, implemented, and funded by the Commission are highly significant and of enduring benefit to the community and the city. and are a critical component of its future. Vista is positioned well to benefit from the construction of public improvements and affordable housing made possible from the increase in future tax increment revenues, and therefore staff recommends adoption of the continuation ordinance and the enforceable obligation payment schedule. That concludes staff's presentation, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I had a speaker, Chuck Rabel, but I don't see him anymore. I think he went home. I think he left. So no, I don't have a speaker. So I'll take any discussion from anybody out there. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor Ritter. Question is to our city manager. Will we have, according to our budget, will we have enough money to make these payments?
By allocating the obligations, the enforceable obligation payment schedule, it allows the Vista to, as a redevelopment agency, continue on making those specific payments, our debt payments and other obligations listed here. Anything that is not listed here, we will not be able to make the payments for. And so we have to make these payments, and if the Supreme Court decides that the action taken by the legislature is acceptable, then we would have to figure out how to continue to make our payments as well as pay the $6.5 million or $6.3 million to the state. So the answer is yes with this action, and how all those funds come together, we'll still see again how much money they take from us, but we have an obligation for the debt, and they have to approve that by virtue of recognizing this for funding for the future.
So we'll know by October, November if we're in a better situation?
No, we'll, the date is January 15th, so mid-January.
Yes, but with the way the economy is going, could it make a difference? If the economy continues to slump, would it make a difference?
That's not going to affect the tax increment significantly. It's pretty, housing affected it some of the, but it's overall the tax increment is pretty much within the range of a couple $100,000 what we've been receiving the last couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gronke, followed by Councilmember Coles.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm completely saddened by this whole thing because finally, Vista was moving on Paseo Santa Fe. And that's been a promise long before I got on this council. And it's unfortunate that we had to put that on hold. And we talked about that just at our last meeting when we had a workshop. So I'm going to go along with this measure because I just think we need to continue, although it'll probably on a lesser amount or lesser degree of what we're going to get for our money. But at least I think if we continue along these lines, and if the state comes through for us, or the courts rather come through for us, we can continue on that process, in which we have a significant amount of money invested in already. So I'm going to approve this.
Okay, Councilmember Coles.
Well, we were dealing with a worst-case scenario when the state finally came up with the second option to give cities, redevelopment agencies, a chance to kind of split the baby in half, so we won't get it all to have an aggressive project like we had hoped. This is going to slow us down, and if the courts uphold the city's rights, then maybe we'll be able to get back into full swing. But in the meantime, I don't want to curtail our plans and our hopes. I see this as slowing us down a bit, but I still want to approve this proposal to keep us on track to do what we can.
Is that a second to that motion?
It's a second if that's what it's needed.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Aguilera.
I'm deeply disappointed in the governor's decision to eliminate redevelopment, and I think it's going to affect not only our city but many cities throughout California, not only in development but jobs. And I was also curious when you mentioned something about health and safety. How do you make that statement? I just want to know what you mean by that health and safety is affected by this.
Many of the infrastructure improvements, in addition to removing blight, can assist in the public health and safety, both directly and indirectly.
Okay, yeah. My question is, the payment that we're making is $1.5 million. Well, we're going to make the 6.2 up front, then it's $1.5 million thereafter. And I noticed that one of the figures that was given in the report is that it's 23.5% of the original amount. Is that the formula, or is there another formula? Can we expect the $1.5 million to go up in the future? And if so, what does that leave us to actually, what's left over to reinvest into our city and to our redevelopment area?
The 23%, the 23.5% is a formula. The State Department of Finance did provide specifically the number for this first year, and then suggested using this formula what the future years would be. I don't think we can absolutely be sure that the 1.5 won't change over year, but based on the information we have now, that's what we'd be projecting out. After you look at the pass-through, after you look at the amount of money that has to go to the Affordable Housing Fund, then the pass-through agreements, the existing debt service, and then this additional payment, it does greatly restrict the amount of 80% money that we have in the next couple of years. As tax increment, as property values increase, which we hope they do over the next several years, that'll give us some additional breathing room.
Jeff, you have something?
Yes, I was pointing out to Mr. Meyer to add to his comments that one of the other things that this allows us to do is to spend the $13 million in bond proceeds that we issued recently.
Okay, thank you. That's good. I can support this. I mean, I think we have to do what we can. It's unfortunate that our hands are tied, but I know the citizens of Vista want that. I know that I spoke about it in my campaigning to represent Vista, and I think we can move forward with this and hope that something changes in the future, but we can't stop.
Hopefully the lawsuit that they filed will come back in our favor. That would be, when he said eliminated, I think it's more like extortion or blackmail rather than eliminate was a nice word you used. But I also support everything all of you said, and I support the motion. So ready to vote on it. Please cast your votes. That motion passes unanimously. Someday, some way, we're going to get that Paseo Santa Fe done. I don't know if it may be smaller projects, but we're going to move forward on it. So now we have the next thing is the enforceable obligation payment schedule, which is our next item, which is actually related to the previous item.
Actually, you voted on both of those together. The motion was for both of those.
Motion was for both of
together.
those. Oh,
those were taken
wonderful.
together.
So both motions passed. Great. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we have, I think, gosh, I better look at my thing here. I think we have public speakers. We have oral communications. And so we just have one speaker tonight, and it's J.C. Wynn. You waited all that time?
Hello, Mayor and Council and staff and everybody that stayed. I'm here just for one reason, and that's just to point out that this Friday is the start of high school football season, And I think that the Rancho team has a really good, promising season coming up. And Vista, we're just going to try to go for 2 in a row, but you know that's a difficult task sometimes. But I just hope to see the citizens of Vista get out and support their high school football teams by buying that $6 or $8 ticket, whatever it is. I think it's cheaper than the movies for a Friday night. And I believe the popcorn's a lot cheaper also. And I just like to see those stands get full so that the kids know that the community's behind them, and it's really a very, very valuable entertainment value. You can't get, you know, it's really, nobody's getting paid out there in that field to perform. They're just doing it for the love of the game. And I just here to promote the football season because it's getting ready to start. And the PPR.
Danny Williams is a great coach. He's
Danny
a
Williams, he's a good coach.
Former student, went to school with my kids. So.
All right. So
yeah.
Anyway, everybody got there to football. There we go.
Thanks, JC. Hey. Thanks for hanging in there. Okay, so with that, we're going to go to our remarks and reports from our council members, and maybe we'll start the other one. Let's start with our city attorney.
Well, this will be very brief because I have nothing to add this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. How about our city manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Just that we have a number of legislative actions pending that many of them that will still hurt cities in a variety of ways. We're very concerned about. There's still what we call 8 Bell bills. They're related to, again, taking authority and power away from cities based on the city of Bell not acting in accordance with how cities should act. So we're monitoring those closely, and we'll bring those to you as they come up. We're very concerned about a couple of them, especially in any restrictions of low and moderate income housing and a couple of other items that again, think that the legislature thinks that they can manage us better than we can manage ourselves. So we'll monitor those and bring those to you as soon as we can.
Thank you. And I would just like to mention one other thing. I'm kind of sad that Jean Cole was one of our, a lot of you know her, she was a former employee of ours, but her son, Bill Cole, passed away earlier this week, and he was only 48, very, very young. He went to school actually with my kids, and so that's a very sad thing, and we want to just tell her our thoughts and our prayers are with her. And on maybe a better note, the firefighters this Saturday are having their annual pancake breakfast, so everybody can go out and support that. They need the funds are going to go to benefit the Wounded Warriors Association, so that's a very worthwhile thing. I think my grandson might be cooking. So anyway, so Saturday at the fire station, number 6, the one by Wellwood Park. And one other thing, they're going to have a country and western hoedown at the Rancho Buena Vista on Sunday, so that'll be kind of fun too, from 2 to 7. And the pancake breakfast from 8 to 11, of course, breakfast. And then the hoedown is on Sunday. So with that, I'll move on to Councilmember Gronke.
Several things. First of all, the sheriff's captain's not here, but I do want to thank the sheriff's department. It appears that
he's back there in the dark.
He is out there. Well, no need to come up here, but thank you. I understand that we were able to take down one of the major taggers in North County, and I appreciate that. So, the other thing deals with our mayor. I want to thank our mayor. She voted against pay raises for 2 directors within the county. As we continue within our city to let people go and take pay reductions, other elected officials, vote for pay increases. I think that happened in Ewa and in Sandag.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking that position. I think it represents our entire city well. And the last thing I have is more personal. Jan, my wife, and I have been married 30 years. She's put up with me for that long, so who knows where it's going to go from here. But thank you, and I love you, kiddo.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Aguilera.
Yes, I'd also like to recognize our mayor for standing up.
Thank you, guys.
I think that was particularly when you're being outvoted by everybody else.
I was the only one.
Yeah, that was
but you
good.
know what? You got to do what's right.
I just look forward to this weekend and meeting with the firemen, eating some pancakes, and getting through it. Thanks.
Yeah. Councilmember Coles.
Well, I had the pancake breakfast on my notes too, and everybody's. I hope to see you all there. I have to get down to Poway for our RISWA meeting. I don't know who else is going to that on Saturday to look at their recycling center down there by 10 or 10:30. The pancake breakfast starts at 7?
I think it starts 8. It starts at 8.
8 to 11, I
8
think.
to
it is.
11.
Okay, it's Fire Station 6.
Fire Station 6.
And then I also, in the spirit of promoting attraction to our downtown area, last Friday evening I accompanied my wife and her jazzercise class. The Vista Jazzercise and the Shatteridge Jazzercise converged on Sonic and did a flash mob right there on the cars. Were having to drive around the block to get
I know,
past
and I wanted to go to that, and I had to go
and
to
I was
Kaplan
surprised
College
you weren't
graduation.
there. You had a twofer there,
I thought it was at 5:30, so I went down there at 5, and I waited, and then I found out it was at 7. I had to be at Kaplan College at 6:30, so. Yeah.
Anyway, you can look at
Must
it on
have
YouTube.
AT&T.
You can look at it on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, okay.
But it was an exciting. There were hundreds of people there on the corner, and I hope they sold a lot of hamburgers too.
Yeah, it was. They were. He said it was great. So, well, and you know what? The Moonlight did a flash mob at the mall, and which was great. If you haven't seen the new show of the Moonlight, it is Hairspray. It is wonderful. So, if you haven't seen that, that's another thing you could go to. Sorry, Mr. Lopez. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. I'm going to speak about D2.
About what?
D2.
What was D2?
Since I couldn't speak on it as a voting person, I can speak here on oral. Tonight, some decisions were made, and there was back and forth. I just want to remind this council that last year, when this came up, it was just through the consent calendar. Voted right through, under consent. This year, it was brought up. We know why it was brought up. This council knows why it was brought up. I want to remind you that the $40,000 that you give them, that money is only $40,000, but you have a tremendous amount of people doing business coming to this town because of $40,000. I also want, but you made a big thing out of it tonight, but I also want you to remind you that you subsidize $500,000 to the Wave. You subsidize $500,000 to the amphitheater. $500,000. 40,000 is all you were doing, but you made this organization go through garbage, all because of political reasons, and that's all it was tonight. Thank you.
With that, we are adjourned.
What was the?